welcome to the Rec Innovation Lab at San Diego Miramar College, where we have one of our founders of one of the startups here at the Rec, who's going to be giving a workshop today on a topic that is very near and dear to a lot of our hearts, and a lot of people want to know more about and are very excited about this workshop today. I know I am, and that amazing founder is Aaron Guyett. And he is going to, he'll be leading the workshop. But before we get started on that, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, Aaron?
Yeah, hi, I'm Aaron. I teach over here in San Diego as well at California Institute of Arts and Technology. I have a technical background, so I'm a technical founder. I was a financial advisor before that, so I've got some experience. And then when crypto popped up, that definitely hit my radar. And so I just started to look at all these different use cases and dove in, as I tend to do with many of the projects that I undertake. And now I've got a startup called Pedestal, which we're leveraging the blockchain as a tool. It's not the exact feature, it's our tool. And I'll talk about the difference between that in the presentation. But I think every company in the future is going to need to leverage the blockchain in some space. So I'm excited to talk to everybody about it.
Yeah, it's time that if we're not comfortable, if we don't know about it, it's time to learn, right? It's time to learn. So wonderful. So as we go along, if you have any questions, please do either put them in the chat. We'll monitor the chat as we go, or if you do have a question and you want to ask, make sure that you do unmute yourself. But while Aaron is speaking, we do ask that you keep your cameras and microphones off, just to limit that bandwidth. So I think that's good. I don't think there's any other housekeeping items. Anything I missed, Stephen or Enzo?
Just keep watch out for a survey that will show up in the chat halfway through the presentation. We want to make sure we get some good feedback for Aaron to let him know how awesome he did today.
Awesome, cool. All right, then we will keep our eyes peeled for that. So Aaron, if you want to go ahead and share your slides, we can go ahead and get started. Sure. And we can learn all about blockchain and crypto.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Cool.
Take it away, Aaron.
Yeah, hi. I've already introduced myself. So I love questions. I've got a demo prepared for you guys today, but I enjoy people coming off the mic or sending questions. I'll try to notice them, but if I miss them, feel free to point them out. I think questions help, right? You guys are here to learn something, and maybe I can be that resource. So I always say, make sure you understand the authority on a topic before you dive in. I have studied massively the blockchain. I built blockchains in multiple languages. We're building a blockchain right now. So from a technical standpoint, I can tell you everything there is about it. But from a business standpoint, it ties in even better. Of course, it's fun to build these blockchains and build all these projects. But like I said earlier, every single company today, successful company, if you look at them, they're all starting to dive into the blockchain. I read a news article today, and the news article was just Tesla decides to keep their Bitcoin. That was it. That was a news article. So nothing changed, and that made the news. So if that's making the news, then it's probably something you're going to want to learn about. So I'll define the blockchain. I'll try not to get too technical for you guys. And then we'll do a little demo. I put something together when I was thinking about Pedestal, and I've got two little nodes set up, which we can make a transaction. I can show you what it looks like to mine a block. And hopefully that'll make sense to you once we get there. And then we'll talk about Bitcoin. I'll introduce that a little bit. And we'll talk about how it ties to entrepreneurship and why you should start to think about it. So as an entrepreneur myself, I wasn't out there looking for a way to integrate the blockchain. I was looking for an opportunity, and then the blockchain added value. And so I think there's going to be a lot of situations like that where the blockchain is going to add value. I tend to talk really, really fast. So just let me know if I'm talking too fast. I'm from the East Coast. So I'll probably get through this quicker than I imagined. So there'll be a lot of time for questions. So cool. All right. Let's get started. All right. So I won't do too many polls. This is actually the only one, but I don't know if they have the poll ready. I do have a poll. I would love to know your guys' knowledge of the blockchain. Shameless plug. This is good data for me. But I do want to know where you guys are at. So if you've heard of it before, great. You're basic. And if you've dabbled in it, maybe you've bought some crypto before, awesome. And then if you're an expert, you're Elon Musk, right? Like, you know, everything there is to know about the blockchain. But again, I would label myself between expert and dabbler. The blockchain is very, very, very complex, very complex. So go ahead and answer if you guys don't mind. That would be great. And I'm just gonna continue. Yeah, if you've got no knowledge, then just throw yourself on there as basic. Well, you've heard of it now, right? I labeled it for you. And so while you guys are doing that, I'm going to jump in. So I've got this diagram, and without any words on the screen, because I'd rather you guys listen to me, there's a lot going on when you get on a blockchain, right? So a blockchain in its most base form is a decentralized ledger. And so what that means is I make a transaction and everybody on the blockchain can see I've made that transaction. I don't have the ledger myself. All of us have the ledger. So when I say decentralized, we all have access to the history of all of the transactions. So when I go on and let's say I send someone like Tanya money, you guys would be able to see that I sent that address money. All right. So let's step through this example I've got here. We've got two peers on the network. All right. We're starting at the left side where those two little laptops are, and they want to make a transaction. So within a certain blockchain, let's say Bitcoin, they say, all right, I want to send you some Bitcoin. So that transaction request is sent to the network. So that second diagram with the triangle, it's actually sent to the network where you have all of these peer-to-peer, which are computers on the network, looking at that transaction. So they say, okay, Aaron wants to send some money. All right. And then they validate that I've sent the transaction. So they validate it and they say, Aaron sent this much money. And then it gets sent over to the miners, or however the blockchain is set up. In Bitcoin's case, it's miners, all right? So what happens with miners is they solve cryptographic algorithms. I won't define those too much, but basically they do math to make sure that they're earning some sort of cryptocurrency reward for validating your transaction. So they use compute power. So if you ever heard of those big buildings in China where they have tons and tons of machines and they've got what's called rigs, they're using tons of compute power to validate transactions. And when they validate that transaction, they earn a reward. All right, so that's what mining is. So it just takes a bunch of compute power. So that's one way the blockchain can work. There's other ways, which I won't get into. It gets very, very technical. But what happens is they mine a block. So they say, okay, we validated this transaction. Now we've mined this block. And so that block has your transaction on it. So your transaction gets mined and gets put onto the end of the blockchain. So everybody else on the blockchain can see that transaction. Basically, you're doing a transaction with everybody watching, but the way that the blockchain works, they anonymize it. So you have an address, but it doesn't say Aaron Guyett, it just says your address, right? And so I could go on and I could look at all of these addresses and I could see all the transactions that happen between an address, but I don't see your name. So the nodes on the network, the miners, they validate the transaction, put it on the end of the blockchain, and then everybody gets a copy of it. So in the most simplest sense, when you do a transaction, it gets put on the blockchain and then everyone can see it. That's the blockchain, right? So it's very, very, very decentralized. And that decentralized term is going to come up a lot because it allows you to share and build that trust. So I can actually show you what it looks like. I've got a little demo here from back when we were game planning Pedestal. You can even see our old logo where I set up these two computers on this network. Oh, I see a question actually. What's the purpose of validating the transaction and why is it necessary for everyone to see it? No, this is a good question. And so validating a transaction means you can't fake a transaction, right? So there's got to be some security system in place. Let's say there's something called double spending. So if I want to send money, I could send money twice, right? And then only validate one of the transactions, but the money gets sent. It looks like I'm sending the money twice. So that's why you'd want to validate the transaction code so you prevent double spending. There's a lot of different reasons, but that's the one that makes most sense to me. So you prevent somebody from ripping someone off, right? And the reason that it's necessary for everyone to see it, that's when the trustless piece comes in. So the whole basis of the blockchain is built on that decentralized ledger. If only a few people could see it, that removes the decentralization piece, right? Then you become a bank. And so the blockchain is removing that bank and centralization component and putting all the data in the hands of everyone else. So it's like, if you're familiar with the tech space, it's like open sourcing data. So open source technology and tech means that everybody has access to it. In this sense, we're open sourcing all of the data to make sure everyone has access to it. So there's no privatization, right? It's pretty cool.
So
Go
Aaron,
ahead.
before you go on, sorry,
Yeah, good.
is it becoming so popular because of the transparency aspect? Is that why? Yeah, you're asking the same question, Karen. That's funny.
Yeah, so no, it's a good question. It's becoming popular because of the transparency piece and because of the security piece in the data, right? So when I talked about the validation, it's very hard to overthrow that validation. I
Okay.
won't get into it too much, but basically, let's say there's 100 people on a network, right? 100 people on a blockchain. To overwrite the blockchain, you would need 51% of the people. So 51 out of the 100 people would have to agree to invalidate the data. So the blockchain is becoming so popular because it's so hard to basically hack. And then the decentralization piece, of course, I mean, I haven't talked to a person in the last 10 years of my life that has said, I love banks. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So then you said that you've built a couple different blockchains. Does
Mhm.
each company have to build their own, or is there some sort of standard?
No, that's a good question too. So there's a lot of different blockchains you can build on. The one that you might have heard of the most is Ethereum. So Ethereum is a blockchain. Actually, the reason why Ethereum is so popular is because it's a platform for you to build on. So Ethereum sets up their own blockchain, and because so many people are adopting it, they get the network effect, meaning that the more people that use it, the more rewarding it is to use it. So Bitcoin is its own blockchain, Ethereum is its own blockchain, but there are tokens built on these blockchains and apps built on the blockchains. You can build your own, but you run into a big problem if you build your own, because let's say I have my own token, right? And I want to convert it to Bitcoin or even convert it to USD. You have to go through other blockchains to make that happen, because you want somebody to purchase your token. Okay, great. Are they going to pay for it? How are they going to pay for it? If they want to pay for it with Bitcoin, you need something very technical called a bridge. And those are not easy to build, and they're not easy. They don't work often. It's a pretty big problem. So that's why you'd build on, if you're going to start a company, we're building on a blockchain, but if you're going to start a company, you want to build on an already existing blockchain.
How
That's what we're doing.
interesting. Okay, cool. So basically, most people are using Bitcoin to pay the miners. You don't really use a different form of currency on blockchains.
So no, Bitcoin is, if you're mining Bitcoin, you're going to get Bitcoin. But if you mine Ethereum, they're getting rid of mining in less than a week or a week. But if you mine Ethereum, you're going to get rewarded in Ethereum. So however you're earning the token
Oh,
on that blockchain, you get rewarded with
got it.
that blockchain.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
no,
is
good
the
question.
token's value based off of how many people are mining that actual token? And is the value of that based on the popularity or how transparent it is?
No, so there's a couple of reasons why some cryptos have value. And so let me throw this at you with Dogecoin, right? And if you haven't heard of Dogecoin, Dogecoin is what's called a meme coin. It was made as a joke, and now it has a market cap of, like, I don't know, $1 trillion. It's something ridiculous. And it doesn't do anything. And there's almost an unlimited supply of it, but it has value. Similar to the way that stocks go up when you say, hey, there's an earnings coming out, there's speculative value. And then there's applicable value, meaning the token actually does something. The reason why, so this is probably unpopular opinion, but I still invest in Bitcoin. I won't tell you guys my investments. I think that's conflict of interest. But the reason why Bitcoin isn't going to be the 10-year long-term solution is because Bitcoin doesn't do anything, and it has slow transaction time. So there are new cryptocurrencies coming up that are built just for transaction, but there are other uses of the blockchain that are being put out, like in healthcare blockchain is really cool, but they use it for data. And so imagine going into the hospital, right? And you don't have your health record. They don't know who you are. But if we carried a card that connected to the blockchain that had your EHR, right? And then it could be updated on the blockchain, and you could see it on the blockchain, but it's anonymous, and only healthcare providers have the key to access it, right? And so blockchains, don't think of blockchains as only doing transactions. Think of them as a tool that can plug in a bunch of different ways, but the way that we've started to use it is for transactions, if that makes sense.
So it has more value than just like a monetary value, basically, or exchanging the coin for goods or things.
Yeah, exactly. You want to, basically, the way that I invest in tokens is if it does something and it has chart data, but I won't talk about chart data, but it has to do something. I like a token called the Graph because they index, so they keep track of all of the data on all of the blockchains. So they organize all the data, right? And so that's a gigantic use case because big data is massive in companies alone. But imagine big data, and I'm going to throw it back to health again, but imagine being able to track tendencies in different areas. Like we can figure out how allergens move, things like that. And so I really like that use case, so I invest in that. So there's more than just transactional data available when you're using the blockchain. But right now, when people say blockchain and crypto, they think it's just, oh, it's just an investment tool.
Can you go over some of like maybe a couple of the main categories of what you mean by do something? Like what are some examples of some of the things that they do?
Yeah, definitely. So I mentioned Ethereum. Ethereum is a platform. And so what Ethereum does is Ethereum gives you their space to build. They have a programming language, it's called Solidity. And you can go on and you can build decentralized apps. And so these apps are built on the Ethereum blockchain, but they set you up so that you can create your own token, right? So if you don't want to use Ethereum, you can have your own token and your own currency. So if you were to make a game, right, on a mobile app, which tons of companies have done, you could go on and build on the Ethereum blockchain, set up your own token, and then have your own in-game currency built right on the blockchain. So Ethereum is a platform. So it's a building platform. So we buy the Ethereum token, people buy the Ethereum token because Ethereum has that applicable use plus their speculative value, right? I think Ethereum will be the #1 platform for building decentralized apps. There's competitors, there's things like Solana and Polkadot, and there's a lot of them, but I like Solana. But that's one use case. Another use case would be something like these exchange tokens. So I mentioned earlier that, remember that use case I talked about, how if I build a token on one blockchain, I want to exchange it for another. How do I do that? Well, you can go through an exchange. So one of the popular exchanges is called Polkadot, or even there's one called 1inch, but and those basically allow you to convert your token to another token on a completely different blockchain. And it finds the pathway to do it with the least resistance and the lowest cost. And so that has a use case of sort of transactional, but that use case is they have a whole governance piece. They have something called a DAO, which I'm not going to talk about today. It's very technical, but a lot of the use cases for the blockchain are technical. Our use case on Pedestal is we're using it as an incentive, and then we're going to be tracking the data of users on the platform anonymously. And then in the long term, our long-term roadmap is we want to decentralize engagements. So peer-to-peer vetting of mentors and mentees on our platform. And then once they form those engagements, if there's any dispute, we can leverage smart contracts, which I don't talk about too much, but where they can be vetted by their peers to end those disputes by people on the platform. So again, there's a lot of use cases. Without me getting overly technical, it's basically like an open sea of use cases, and people are just starting to identify them now.
So basically we would invest or buy tokens in, I'm going to say companies, even though maybe they're not companies, that we think that what they do is valuable. So if we believe that, I don't know what you called it, Ethereum or whatever builds that bridge, like that currency exchange, if we think that in itself is valuable, and we think that in the long run, a lot of people will need that kind of like currency exchanges for other countries, but the coin version, if we think that's going to be around for the long term, we would hypothetically invest in that because we think it'll be around long term in the future.
Yeah, long term and short term, but there's also added incentives. Like, for example, our roadmap has a return to holders, right? 1% of transactions will go back to holders. And then there's some things like burn. So when you're going to look at buying a token or any sort of crypto, what you should do is dive into their white paper. And I very much wasn't going to talk about white papers, but white papers it's a marketing tool. If you're going to write, if you're ever going to start a tech company, you should always write a white paper, and I could have a whole presentation on that. But it's a marketing tool that gets into the tech of the blockchain, and it shows you how you earn. And so if you were to invest in a token, you would read their white paper and see, okay, so not only is the token going to go up speculatively, but I'm going to be rewarded. For example, I mentioned that 1% of transactions go to holders. There's some blockchains where they donate to charity, right? I invested in a cryptocurrency that donated 70 grand to animal shelters. So, and they even incentivize holders. They gave 2% back of that investment to holders. So it was pretty cool. That cryptocurrency went under, otherwise I would reference it right now. But yeah, there's a lot of added incentives other than just speculative value increase.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I saw some other questions too. We probably won't have time to talk about halving. I'm going to be honest. And I think that's technical. Halving is really cool. It's a bank run by a company, kind of. So if you ever talk to somebody in the crypto space or blockchain space and you say the word bank, they're going to run. So remove that term bank from your vocabulary when you talk about crypto. It's not a bank, and all of these different cryptos that are created, the way that the coin is created is different. From this presentation, all I've talked about is mining, but that's one way to create crypto. We don't, at Pedestal, we use something called proof of contribution. And so the network itself generates the token. We have no control over how the token is created once we build our blockchain, right? And a lot of Ethereum is switching to proof of staking. So you hold the token to create more of the token. So it's kind of, I don't really like that one because you got to actually hold the token. You do not need to be a public company to create a blockchain. You can create a blockchain and then so you can, in a weird way, you can create a private blockchain and leverage the data and then not share it. But if you're really going to use a blockchain in the sense of the way that we intend the blockchain to be used, you'd want it to be open and the data to be available, right? But imagine a distributed ledger among a company, right? Or among a network of companies. So you want to share it, as soon as you start getting vetted by a company, you just say, yeah, we'll plug you into our blockchain. So then their due diligence, right? When you're working with third parties, your due diligence is just to look at their transactions, right?
So thanks, Aaron, about that. Because there's businesses here that are everywhere from idea stage to like 5 years.
Right.
So that's why I was kind of wondering like how that applies to us specifically, and that's awesome. So.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. I'm actually going to talk about how you guys can integrate it if you're a day one business or a 10-year business. Because look at these big companies that have been around for years and they're all starting to. If you take a look at patents on the blockchain, you'd be surprised which companies have a lot of blockchain patents. And it's weird because, like I said, it's decentralized. So how are they patenting it? But again, that's a whole nother piece. All right, how do we know which blockchain are using each coin? Google. So just Google the coin. Yeah, they're all different, right? So you can see which platform it was built on. And that's part of your due diligence. So if you're ever going to invest or look at any of these coins, do your due diligence. It's like any investment you're going to make. Don't just do it because somebody tells you to buy Dogecoin. Don't go buy Shiba because your friend bought Shiba. Go look at it and make sure it's a good investment. But if you're looking at it from a technical perspective and want to see what blockchain is built on, you can find that in the white paper or just Google or go to the subreddit. Almost all these coins have subreddits. So we're going to have a subreddit. And we're going to talk about our crypto on our subreddit. But cool, these were good questions actually. So I appreciate you guys asking them. So this is the demo, and so without getting too technical, which I'll say quite a bit, we have an address, right? And an address basically is a pointer. So I'm logged in as this whatever user. We'll say this is user one because that's a fun name. And so I'm logged in as user one here, and I have this address. And I have a balance of 1,000, right? I have 1,000 of, whatever token is here. We'll say it's the token that we're going to create on our platform. So we'll call it the Pedestal building token. We're creating PBT. And this is our old logo, so don't mind this. You can tell that I do not make logos. So, and what I can do is I have this address, right? It's a different address with the same balance. And so I can take this address and actually conduct a transaction and send, let's send 100 of PBT to user 2. And so if I wasn't on long enough, so I think we might have talked it out. I have these shut down like every 30 minutes. So if it's shut down, we'll just move on and I'll get it up in a minute, but it's probably shut down. I set these up pre-launch. Oh no, there we go, success. So, all right, so now it's sent that transaction and you can see I hit it twice. So it's sending 200 to this user. So it's from this user, we're sending 200 to this user, okay? And so the way that this works, this is what's called a transaction pool. So until this transaction is validated, it sits here. All right. So it actually sits here until somebody mines it. And so if I look at the transaction pool, which it's going to disappear because it reset. So let's just do that again real quick. But if I go back to the transaction pool and I mine the transaction, it's going to create a new transaction So let's go back to the transaction or the blocks, where we can see that I sent 100 of PBT, but then I mined the transaction and I was provided a reward. So 50 PBT were created from me mining that transaction. And in the most simplest sense, this is how Bitcoin works. So we sent a transaction, it got put in a pool, somebody mined a block, and now we have blocks on our blockchain. We had the first block that started it, and now we have the second block that has our transaction in it, as well as the reward. So there's a lot going on the back end, as you can tell when you look at something, and you probably were looking at this and probably feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. So, but if we look at how much we actually have now, we have 950, right? Because we sent 100 and earned 50 for the reward. So yeah, block is a ledger entry. Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right.
What's PBT?
PBT is just the token that we're creating for Pedestal. So just the name I gave it. So ours is called the Pedestal building token. Cool. All right, so we talked a lot about, I probably already said some of the things I'm going to cover, so I'll jump around. But there's a difference between cryptocurrency and tokens. Bitcoin was essentially the first decentralized crypto. There were some things that kind of ramped up to Bitcoin, including PayPal. What are the benefits of owning cryptocurrency? Yeah, so depending on which crypto you own, there's additional benefits. I went over this a little bit earlier. Some of them reward you just for owning it, right? Like you can actually stake your cryptocurrency and earn a yearly return. So you can earn interest on crypto, but it will also go up in value. But some of them give you other value points just for holding it. You can earn like 2% just for holding that token. Other than that, you're contributing to the network. So if you hold the token for some of these cryptocurrencies or blockchains, you're actually acting as a contributor. You're part of the network. You're acting as either an investor, or some of them validate in a different way, which I won't cover. But there's a lot of benefits to holding it. Anytime you have a question like that, take a look at whichever crypto you're interested in and just do your research. So they're all so different that each one has its own benefits. Bitcoin specifically, the only benefit of owning Bitcoin is the fact that Bitcoin is popular. So yeah, no worries. Decentralized means that no single owner, so nobody owns Bitcoin. So the best way to think about decentralization is it's community owned. So I think it was Mila gave a, community owned bank was her definition of cryptocurrency in the blockchain. It's more like it's a community owned environment, ecosystem, that's the word. So it's a community owned ecosystem. So meaning no one can control it, which is great. Because with the banks control it, right? You're on the whim of the bank. With Bitcoin, you're on the whim of the entire network, and the entire network is going to act in its own best interest. And so when you have Bitcoin, everybody holding Bitcoin wants to act in the best interest of Bitcoin, right? Because they want Bitcoin to go up. So think of it that way. When you have money in a bank, the bank acts in the best interest of the bank, right? In this sense, you're skipping that centralized piece, and now everyone's acting in the best interest of the holders of that token. So decentralized means no single owner. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. And so I'll define those real quick. They're a digital asset, and they're used to make or receive payments on a blockchain. So Bitcoin has its own blockchain, all right? No matter how the blockchain is set up, if you have a cryptocurrency, that is the use case for the cryptocurrency, okay? And so the way it works is what you just saw in the demo, you saw I had an address, okay? And so everybody on the network has an address. And the way that the address is created, it comes from keys. So when somebody talks about their crypto wallet, what they're doing is they're defining these keys that create an address. And so when you create a wallet, you get keys. You should never share your keys with anyone. So don't share your private key. And if you can, don't share your public key. So never, ever share your keys with anyone when you make a wallet, ever. So that's the reason I bring up keys. It's just a word of warning. So who put the price when you grow a coin? The way that the coin prices are initially created, they actually get valuated. So the way that you guys are going to get a 409A valuation on your startup, you have to do the same exact thing for a cryptocurrency. So somebody comes in and audits your token and they say, this is what it's worth, and you start it there. So after that, it's up to the network, the cost of the token. So, but again, okay, get value from the white paper. Nope, the white paper can't. You got to have somebody come in and evaluate it. If somebody doesn't come in and evaluate it, you shouldn't buy it. You shouldn't buy any token that just exists. Yeah. The price is most definitely supply and demand. Yeah, definitely. Yep, exactly. Enzo's right. So remember, don't give out your keys. We talked about double spending earlier. As a quick refresher, double spending is when you're making 2 payments with the same funds. You can't do that with Bitcoin. All right, so you can't do that. The big thing here is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a token. All right, so Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Okay, and so the difference between tokens and cryptocurrencies, tokens are units of value that blockchain-based organizations or projects develop on top of existing blockchain networks. So when we talked about Ethereum earlier, if we build on Ethereum, we'll create a token. That's why I called it Pedestal building token, right? It's a token, all right? They are a subset of cryptocurrencies. So cryptocurrencies are tokens are cryptocurrencies, but not all cryptocurrencies are tokens, okay? So the reason that Bitcoin exists is because PayPal paved the way, right? They started with peer-to-peer payments. So that was the kind of the first very big commercial success of a company diving into uncharted territory. All right. Hashcash, actually, if you guys have ever heard of Hashcash, it was a proof of work algorithm that actually Bitcoin still uses. So Bitcoin uses this. It was made in the 90s, but it was DDoS prevention for emails. It still exists. You can look up Hashcash. I actually put it on the link that they sent, the link tree. You should check it out. There's an interesting story there. But Bitcoin leverages that technology that was built in the 90s as their algorithm. So we're still using it. DDoS protection is, so very quickly, DDoS protection is when somebody were to try to overload servers at a company, they wouldn't be able to, okay? That's what DDoS protection does. So segueing out from Bitcoin, if you think about the way that we all recognize Bitcoin, right? When we say cryptocurrency, we think about Bitcoin, right? So tying it back to entrepreneurship, Bitcoin and Ethereum are category kings. Ethereum, it dominates the blockchain platform market, right? We can build on it. And if I'm going to just skip ahead here, but if you look at this diagram alone, Bitcoin has, as of whenever this was, I think this was like less than a week ago, because obviously Bitcoin's at like 40,000 today. But Bitcoin has a market dominance, a market cap dominance of almost 50%. They are a category king, okay? And so category kings on cryptocurrency and category kings on blockchain means that there's still a wide market open for every other use case of cryptocurrency in the blockchain. There's new markets being made. As you heard, I gave you some examples. I talked about something with allergens, right? I'm sure you didn't expect that coming into this, that you would hear me say allergens in the blockchain, right? A lot of companies are thinking about it the wrong way. So when you start to think about the blockchain, don't think about the blockchain and then apply a use case. Find the use case, and then if the blockchain can plug in, great. So blockchain markets are going to continue to be created. We're going to continue to see new use cases for them, right? And so the definition of a category king or queen is they dominate about 80% of the market. So category kings and queens are created when they focus on product development, company development, and category development. So as we moved from product development to experience development, category development is the next thing. So category development is when you start to build your company and you define a category. I'll give you some examples. When I say GoPro, you think of a helmet cam on your head, right? You could go out and you could buy a helmet cam and you would probably still call it a GoPro. A lot of kids call tablets iPads. We have Q-tips. Those are all category kings because they dominate the category. The brand has become synonymous with what it does. And so that is the ideal for any startup, is to become a category king, but you have to define what category you want to be. And so you do that as you're building out your product offering, your company, and the experience that you want users to have on, right? So you should have somebody come in, a trusted person come in, or a trusted team, and talk to you about what category you want to fulfill. And then you go back and forth until you come up with that category. A great example is a company called Origami. They got purchased by Intuit in 2019. They created the category of marketing signals. So marketing signals didn't exist before origami. They were there, but nobody defined them as marketing signals. So a marketing signal is every time you do something on the internet or on social media, or even walk into a store and make a purchase, you're contributing to your market signal or a market signal for an industry. And so origami gathered all this data and became the king of marketing signals. They were synonymous with the term marketing signals because they created it and they got purchased and acquired, which is great. You know, they definitely deserve it. And so with the blockchain, if I go here and I show you these, well, I can point out two-ish category kings. And this is just for things that this is just NFTs, right? This is just one diagram. I'll tell you what NFTs are in a second, but we see Ethereum, and then some of you may have heard of Axie. Axie is blowing up right now. NFTs are another use case for the blockchain. And so NFTs are non-fungible tokens. Basically, an NFT is just a digital asset. So it's not a cryptocurrency. It can be a form of art, right? You can buy art NFTs. You can buy tweet NFTs. The first tweet was sold as an NFT. So the way that it works is when you take a picture of the Mona Lisa, right? You have that picture of the Mona Lisa, but you don't have the Mona Lisa, right? You can look at your picture of the Mona Lisa, but the Mona Lisa is one of a kind. Same thing with NFTs. So NFTs are one or a limited number of kind of a digital asset on the blockchain. And so without getting too much into NFTs, you'll see that all of these categories have so many people in them. None of them are brand names. I don't recognize most of them. And that's because they haven't established themselves as the kings or queens because they haven't done category development yet. And there are so many new categories emerging with use cases on the blockchain that the market's wide open. And so the way that you want to start to think about it is, if I'm going to do this, is the blockchain a tool, or should I build it on the blockchain, or none of the above? And this doesn't apply to every scenario, right? In the future, it might, and I'm pretty confident it's going to. If you guys have ever seen Star Wars, they work on a credit system, right? So they have credits, and you go anywhere in the galaxy, and you can transact in credits. I think that's probably the way things are going to work. There'll be one sort of system, which is why I don't think it's going to be Bitcoin. But the blockchain is here to stay. That's kind of what we're starting to see. So there's one that's really cool on there. I'm not going to point out too many, but Rally, it rewards creators, which is what Pedestal does. And so we're really big on that, but it rewards influencers on the platform. So if you get some time, that's definitely check it out. It's really cool. It lets them create their own tokens, and then you can buy into their token to support them. It's really cool. So I just kind of talked about it, but when you want to plug into the blockchain, think of it either as blockchain as a service. So you're building to build this blockchain. This is your offering, or blockchain as a feature. So the blockchain is a tool. OpenSea is a marketplace built for Ethereum NFTs. You can buy and sell NFTs. So their service offering is based on the blockchain. Without the blockchain, it doesn't exist. So the service is the blockchain. With Brain Trust, they're a cool company that lets you hire software engineers that have been vetted by other software engineers already on the platform who have been vetted. And when you vet software engineers on the platform, you get rewarded with their token. So their blockchain is a feature. They existed before they created the cryptocurrency component. And they just raised, I think, 24 million at the beginning of this year. They just finished their raise to actually build out the blockchain piece. They leveraged the blockchain. So they saw an opportunity. They already had the infrastructure for the recruiting piece, and they saw an opportunity to plug in the blockchain. And they have a really cool white paper. So I know I've given you like 10 different things to check out, but it's just, there's so much here to read. So start to think about it in that sense. If you've already got some infrastructure created, would the blockchain increase your product offering? And don't just do it to do it, right? Especially if you're trying to pitch to investors. Investors are typically, the blockchain can be very polarizing, okay? And so people often either love the blockchain or they hate it. So there's usually not anything in the middle. They leverage it, so they loan it. No, they give it out. So when I say leverage, I mean they use the blockchain to give it out. And I don't know where the recording is going to be. So if somebody else might know. But I think this is all recorded, so you definitely can access this after.
So if they're giving it out, that builds its value, right?
So good question. If they're giving it out, so it goes back to supply and demand, but in theory, yes. If nobody has the token, then nobody's going to want the token, right? So they give it out, but they put a blocker in the way, and they have something called burn, which I don't talk about here, but they still make sure that the supply is limited. But the way that the network creates the token is similar to the way ours works, where they use, I believe, proof of stake and proof of contribution, but they're adding value to the network by getting people on their network, and then they reward them for being on their network and incentivize holding it. So they have a bunch of incentives just for holding the token and transacting with the token. So they found a way to use it. Yeah, no worries. Glad you came. Okay, cool. So I talked about some use cases for crypto earlier. I think there's quite a few. I know we're getting closer to time, but I still got to go a little bit. Healthcare, I think, is going to be the biggest. If I'm going to be honest, if I didn't start Pedestal, I want to do something that gave back, and so I wouldn't be in, other people wouldn't be in a scenario where they didn't have a mentor, kind of the scenario I was in. I would have done something with the healthcare piece. I think electronic medical records and supply chain management are great use cases of the blockchain. So if you're still in the ideation phase, definitely take a look. I don't think anybody's plugged in there. You could be the category king of supply chain management on the blockchain. You just got to come up with a nifty name, right? Advertisements, so we can have advertisement networks and platforms. Brave browser, which I was using when I presented this to you guys. I'm using Brave browser. They leverage a reward system. They're one of the best browsers, but they leverage a reward system where you can see I've actually just earned rewards for letting them send me tiny notifications. They send me tiny little push ad notifications, and their ad network pays. They're very expensive to advertise on, and they pay, and I get the benefit as, so somebody who would never be rewarded, but I would still have to see ads. Now I get rewarded for viewing ads, right? And by the way, Brave, outside of the reward system, is like one of the best browsers. It's super safe and secure. So definitely take a look. But that's a network. They leverage the blockchain to have an ad network. There'll also be platforms. So yeah, Brave is great. Yeah, I agree. There's also social platforms. Pedestal is one of them. But there are also, I think there's one called Torum. Torum is a social media platform that's built on the blockchain. I'm not a big fan, but check it out. I think what they're doing is the right step. If they make a couple more steps, I think they could be great. And so you can leverage the blockchain for connections, right? Or you can reward connections. So you can actually incentivize people engaging together, or just log their data on the blockchain and leverage that data and share it. So if you're familiar with things like APIs, which APIs are just tons of data that you usually have to pay to access, the blockchain removes that cost. So one of the most important things to consider here is don't fall behind. So you pay taxes for that free money. So you are going to pay taxes depending on how you earn it. Yes. Talk to a tax person. Never do your crypto taxes alone, ever. So ever. From the finance background, always talk to somebody who can help you and make sure they have cryptocurrency tax experience or an authority in it. So, but yeah, you're going to pay if you've earned on interest or spec gain, right? So remember when I was barely alive, but Web 1.0 came out, and that was desktop. We started to get access to the internet. I remember the sound in the modem, and then You've Got Mail, all that fun stuff. And then Netscape came out and then got dominated pretty quickly because social networks came out. What if all I've done is lose money on the crypto market? Don't sell. So I won't talk too much about speculation, and don't listen to me. I don't want to be liable. I don't want you guys to come back to me and be like, you told me not to sell. So always make your own judgment calls, but I believe in crypto enough so that I'm holding. So, but on what happened with Web 2.0 is social media came out, and we started to develop with mobile first in mind, and handheld devices came out, and companies that couldn't keep up with that fell behind. Cloud computing, right? Remember, Amazon was just a bookstore, and they created a category called cloud, and they dominated that. They dominated books. Amazon dominated books, then they dominated cloud. They dominate multiple categories, right? They still dominate with Kindle and a couple of other things, kind of with Kindle, but they own that category. Yeah, you can report your losses. That's a good point. Yep. And now we're moving into Web 3.0. And so Web 3.0 is where you want to start thinking, is my business going to stay relevant? am I going to keep up with this shift? Because if you look at these, right, Bitcoin is not at the top. And that's why I picked this one. Things like Ocean and Maker, which there aren't things I even mentioned because they're a little bit more technical than I have time for, are towards the top. Web 3.0 is going to be driven by AI, decentralized data, and edge computing. So we're even moving further along that line until eventually we're all going to be part robot. But you've got to start to think about, is this going to stay relevant? If I build it right, can I plug in Web 3.0? We're not at Web 3.0 yet, but we're getting there. We're getting closer and closer. You can buy Web 3.0 domains, Unstoppable Domain. But right now, if you go to, it's in the link that they sent out. Yeah, and I appreciate the disclaimer. Thank you. But yeah, so if you want to buy a domain that points to your wallet, your crypto wallet, you can actually go and do that. So we're getting closer and closer to Web 3.0. And so this is more or less, just make sure you're keeping up, because you don't want to fall behind. Look at Netscape, right? And notice how far down Facebook is. So keep that in mind. So Web 3.0 defined is that it's open to all, so there's no limits to access. It's trustless, which is a really cool word. All it means is that it's minimized the amount of trust required in a system on everybody. So you can join it because everybody can see what you're doing. They might not know it's you, but you've got an identifier, which makes it permissionless. So no permissions are required to join the network. You can go and buy Bitcoin and be a part of the Bitcoin network, right? You're going to have your transaction will be on the network forever when you make that transaction. And finally, it's distributed. We can all see it and we all have access to that network. So Web 3.0 is going to leverage these. When you start to think about your technologies, can you plug into these? Will Web 3.0 impact you to the point where you won't keep up? And so that's what you want to start thinking about. Stream it and Hive are good platforms for. Oh, that's really cool. I've never even heard of that. Stream it and Hive. I've heard of Hive. Hive is great. Paula just said some pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I would check out those. So, and finally, I think one of the last pieces is this is not going anywhere. So El Salvador adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. Okay. On CoinMarketCap, which is a site that many investors use, you can go on and you can vote which country you think is going to be the next to accept Bitcoin or cryptocurrency as legal tender. And you can actually earn a reward if you're right, because it's the blockchain, so they can do that. Absolutely incredible. It's already gotten rejected at some countries, but it's just a matter of time. All right. Again, I don't think Bitcoin's the absolute future. I think blockchain is the future. That's what this was about. And I don't think Ethereum is the ultimate future either. I like other platforms. So that being said, as you can see right now, they're category kings. So don't try to compete with Bitcoin or Ethereum, but leverage them. All right. But that's it, which we're pretty good on time. So I'm pretty surprised, but I hope that helps. I hope you can plug into the blockchain and maybe you got something out of this. It was pretty technical, I know, but maybe that gave you just enough to be like, okay, I can finally understand. And if you do understand, then I hope you can explain it to me, because I still don't understand. So after all of my years of looking at the blockchain, there's just so much. If there's one video I can recommend, check out the founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin's video on crypto economics. It's an hour long on YouTube. It'll go way over your head because it goes way over my head, but you guys are probably much smarter than me. So take a look at it. It's awesome. He talks about the future of it. He's an absolute genius. He's an Einstein of our generation. But I appreciate you guys. I'd love it if you guys signed up on Pedestal. You can take a look at our blockchain component and earn some cryptocurrency while helping others and developing yourself. So thank you so much. I'll take any questions if there's any, but you guys were great about asking them during.
Can you repeat his name again? The speaker you were talking about, Aaron.
Vitalik Buterin. I can type it. Yeah, yes, Enzo got it. So with Pedestal, how do you earn the tokens? On our platform, you earn the tokens through contribution. So we leverage proof of contribution because we want to stay green. So you don't have to set up 1 million computers, and they're not very green. Like Bitcoin isn't very green. And that's the biggest problem with Bitcoin, I think. But what you do is you use the platform. So there's a bunch of different ways on the platform you can earn it, but the best way to earn it is to mentor others. So you'll earn as you do different things on the platform mentoring. We have an algorithm that calculates your interactions with your mentee, and you're going to earn based on that. But there's also a leaderboard system and achievements, and there's a marketplace component, and there's NFTs on our platform. So we've got a whole ecosystem ourselves because we want the token to have value as well. Yeah, so we're an open source mentoring platform, meaning you're industry agnostic, you're not specific to any industry. The tools we provide, we keep you engaged right on the platform, so you can do Zoom right on the platform, but the tools we provide aren't specific to, software engineering. We've got things like spreadsheets, rich text editors, so like Word documents, a whiteboard, notes, tasks, goals, but you're going to track towards goals. So even as a mentor, we'd love it if you're tracking towards goals as well. Yeah, Vitalik is super young. He's a genius. He's an absolute genius. Yeah, and he donates it. He donates very regularly. He donated, I don't remember the exact number, so I don't want to butcher it. He donated multiple billions of dollars to, I think it was India, and somebody can fact check me, but I think it was India this year. So he's an incredible person, great humanitarian.
Would you be okay with us contacting you on LinkedIn to like talk more about it, like, I guess privately or in a group?
Yeah, you can contact me. I'm super open. I take pretty much every meeting. So if you want to contact me on LinkedIn, I'll share my email, which is probably not best practice. So, but I think it's on. Yeah, it's on there. You can even email me. But yeah, you can contact me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
As well.
Thanks.
I wanted to add a quick comment, if you don't mind, Aaron.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Vitalik Buterin just donated to India, and I just checked, it was $1.5 billion, and $1 billion was for COVID-19 relief in India. And this is something that is not rare at all in the crypto space. Like, it's a lot about the community. Like, a lot of these developers that started a cryptocurrency, they don't think about the money at all. The money is just a consequence. They believe in the technology. And one thing that me personally, I really like about it is giving access to the financial system to people that cannot create a bank account, because banks will not let them open an account. So there's many poor countries in Africa, for example, that they use Bitcoin or other types of crypto because they don't have another way to buy stuff. So
yeah,
a lot about the mission,
And piggybacking on that, there are even funds that pop up that fund. So there's one of them that's called Seedify.fund, and they'll fund not only just startup ideas like Seedify is for startup, but there's some crypto. I think one of them is called Banana Crypto, and it'll fund if you want to open a farm in somewhere like the Philippines, and they'll actually fund it, and they have a board, and they don't get anything. Some of them are investment platforms, like Seedify is a startup incubator where they get a return. But there's so many use cases, and that's why, like, even if you hear somebody talking about creating the blockchain and they get a massive return from it, don't really use it, because if somebody's creating a blockchain with that monetary incentive, they're not leveraging the blockchain in the way it's meant to be leveraged. It's supposed to be decentralized. We want Pedestal to be decentralized, right? And so you should always try to find those use cases.
I'm sorry, I don't think I got my full question answered. So like, there's two things, like when you have, so tokens, sorry.
Yeah.
Tokens, I understand that they're not currency, they're just a representation of value, right? So like, is there a way to like spend or to trade tokens for cryptocurrency, or is that not a thing at all?
Yeah, no, there is. And so tokens do have value, like Pedestal. So when we create Pedestal building token, the Pedestal building token is not an investment tool. Our PBT is not an investment tool. And from a legal standpoint, I hope that puts me not only in your graces, but I'm supposed to say that. So it will have a value associated with it. And so you can sell it for Bitcoin if you want it, or you can sell it for USD, like dollar, if you wanted. And tokens generally are used on the platform to help invest in the platform or give back to the users. So cryptocurrencies and tokens do similar things. So cryptocurrency is just a superset of tokens. So tokens are cryptocurrencies.
Okay, that's very cool. Thank you. And with Pedestal, I'm already on the wait list. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you. We're excited to have you.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if I got distracted by something. So when it comes to earning the tokens on Pedestal with mentorship, can it be mentoring about anything or like business related or?
So we're open to any industry. So that was one of the things we wanted to break down the barrier to. A lot of these mentoring platforms are specific to either just like entrepreneurship or software engineering, and a lot of them have paywalls. And so we wanted to remove the paywall. That's why the decentralization blockchain piece comes in. We can still reward mentors for their time. But we also want to remove the paywall to, or the wall to the barrier to certain industries. So yeah, you can come on and learn and work with mentors in any space.
That's very exciting. Thank you. Can't
Yeah,
wait.
definitely.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Thanks for all of that, the knowledge that you provided today. I know a lot of it went, just like how you said, the knowledge from the other video goes over your head, but some of the stuff that you presented on went way over my head, but I'm so appreciative of the data, and I am going to be sure to watch the video again just so I can condense and understand everything that you went over. You went over a lot of good information. With that, is there anything you wanted to take us out with before we end the recording?
No, I appreciate you guys taking the time. I hope you got something out of that. Even if you're like, okay, a blockchain is a decentralized ledger. If you got that much, then you're leaps and bounds ahead and you're the early adopter now. So appreciate everybody coming.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. You did such a great job. Super informative.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Hertz, and I'm the director of the Regional Entrepreneurship Center, the Rec Innovation Lab at San Diego Miramar College. And I'd like to thank our partners at this time and give a special thanks to SDSU's Lavin Center, the SDSU Zip Launchpad. We'd like to thank the California Entrepreneurship Educators Conference. Also like to thank Harness, the Brink SBDC at USD, San Diego Unified Schools. We'd also like to thank School of Entrepreneurship and Technology, High Tech High, the Regional Advisory Committee, Alex Waters at the Jacobs Center, Connect All, 21IQ Labs, Startup Quest, Productified. I'd like to thank Course Key and Tech Coast Angels. Thank you to Village Up, City Heights Development Corporation, San Diego Angel Conference, Startup San Diego, SBDC, Score San Diego, We Are Kingdom, New Media Rights, San Diego Tech Hub, Origin 63, Ambrosio 15, OmniSync, Optima Office, Proven Recruiting, Craft Leadership, GSNL Consulting. Thank you to all of our partners. We couldn't do what we do without you. Thank you.